So this is based on some previous work. It's an extension of sorts. What I'm showing here is what is referred to as TSP art. TSP stands for the traveling salesman problem. We take some image, render it as a collection of dots, as artists would say, a stipple pattern, and then we connect the dots into a single loop. And I haven't drawn the entire loop. The completion is left to the viewer as an exercise. It's interesting to note here that the dots, the vertices of the graph, do all the heavy lifting at making the resulting artwork recognizable. The edges, the lines, primarily add visual noise, and the reason we want as short a tour as possible is we want the least amount of visual noise as possible. So numerous questions arise. What if we start with a collection of dots that doesn't look like anything other than, a square grid of dots? These dots come from a 16 by 16 chessboard. There's one dot per square of the chessboard, and the edges come from chess moves, the moves that could be made by a chess knight or a chess king. So you've got the unit 1 edges, the orthogonal king's moves. You've got the diagonal moves of length root 2 that could also be made by a chess king, and then you've got the moves of length root 5, which could be made by a chess knight. So those are the only vertices and edges that I'm allowing myself to work with here. Here is a subgraph. In this particular subgraph, we see every single vertex, every single dot has degree 2. It's touched by exactly 2 edges. In this other subgraph, we see that some of the vertices have degree 2, some have degree 4. And here, some of the vertices have degree 1, others have degree 2. The largest, I believe, is degree 5. If we step back from these, you might see that they spell out H, E, and T, and that's because the one on the left is a Hamiltonian cycle, a single loop. The one in the middle, where all the vertices are even degree, is an Eulerian circuit, and the one on the right, which is connected and acyclic, is a tree. Now, these are crude examples of figurative subgraphs. Again, all the edges come from the original 16 by 16 king-knight chessboard graph. What if we start with some other image? So this is an emoji. It's the smiley face emoji wearing sunglasses, and we've seen that on the right, I've rendered it as a Hamiltonian cycle. All the vertices have degree 2. There's one way in, one way out. If you start somewhere, you can follow the path, visit each vertex once and only once, and return back to where you started. Here's an Eulerian rendition. So here, no matter where you start, it's possible to take a walk that crosses each edge once and only once and returns back to where you start. Here's a tree version. So here, if you pick any 2 vertices, any 2 dots, you can find a path that connects them, and there's only one such path. There's no loops. It's connected and acyclic. Now you might, these look nice, I think. The one on the right, I think, looks nicest, and that's because the constraints that define the tree are, in a sense, much less restrictive than the constraints that define the Eulerian subgraph, which are much less restrictive than the ones that define the Hamiltonian cycle. And I've done statistical analysis. You may wonder, why do I do this? I sometimes wonder this. The one answer is to make puns. You might respond to this by quoting to me this quote: "The pun is the lowest form of wit." And I will say, as a mathematical optimizer, I take this as a challenge. How low can I go? So here are 3 Hamiltonian puns. Here's a Hamiltonian cycle rendition of William Rowan Hamilton, the Irish mathematician for whom these are named. Does anyone recognize this? Sarah Connor, Linda Hamilton, the actress, another Hamiltonian cycle. Lin-Manuel Miranda of the Broadway musical Hamilton. All 3 together. All these come from a 64 by 64 king-knight chessboard graph. 4 spanning tree puns. Deciduous tree emoji. I had to do Arthur Cayley. Henry Sagerman suggested this, so blame him. Baby Groot from Guardians of the Galaxy. And this is Ash Williams from The Evil Dead, just Ash because Ash is the name of a tree. These four make up my, you'll get one of these in your gift bag. I have one Eulerian pun. This one takes a little bit of explaining, but maybe not in this audience. So I don't need to explain it. I don't have much time to show the 3D printed work that I've done on this. I'll just show a couple slides. You can take one of these. This is the Hamiltonian cycle of the smiley face emoji wearing sunglasses. You can put it on a light board, shine light through it. It looks kind of cool. Here are some Knights tours, which are related, viewed from above on a light board. Both of these show the actual 3D printed tour. They look kind of architectural, which suggests doing a Knights tour castle. And I leave you with a haiku on the right. Thank you.